This is Anthony Flatt, and you're listening to the Business at the Speed of Sell podcast, Fargo edition.
Welcome to the Business at the Speed of Sell podcast, where you'll learn how to accelerate the growth of your online and offline businesses, profits, and personal income. Tune in daily to get the tips, tricks, and tactics that have generated over $100 million in online and offline sales. Now, here's your host, Anthony Flatt.
Welcome back. Let's continue with episode 2 of 3 in this Building Your Business by Outsourcing series. Now let's talk a little bit about different types of freelancers and different things that you can outsource. One of the things I think is outsourced quite a bit is writing. Article writing, sales copy, eBooks, writing speeches, writing show notes, writing press releases, business presentations. There's really an unlimited number of different things that a writer can provide for you. But when you're looking for a writer, you need to be very, very specific on what you're looking for. If you generically say, I'm looking for somebody to write an ebook on babysitting, you'll probably get hundreds of people that respond to you from the online services and from the agencies wanting to write that book for you. You'll probably be unhappy with the results you get from most of those people. The reason being is you need to define something more specific than, I want you to write an ebook on babysitting. Now, if you're just looking for a quick ebook and you don't really care what the content is and you're just going to throw it out there, then maybe you'll get the results that you're looking for. But that's not what I'm looking for. If I'm going to put content out there, I want to be proud of that content. I want to make sure that it reflects me, that is written in a style that would be something that I would write, and also something that I don't have to go through and painstakingly edit because it's written in a completely different format or the voice of the content is not my voice. So you really want to look for writers that work within your style. Now, the way I find writers that work for me is I'll give them a little task. I'll put a job posting out there looking for a particular assignment. I'll have them write something for me. Maybe I'll have them write a 500-word article or a 1,000-word article, and I'll give them some specific bullets on what I want them to write about. And then when I get that back, I'll evaluate that content, and I'll see what that looks like and see if that's something that I can work with. If it's something I can work with, I'll give them another task and see where we go from there. Now, one thing that I found to be very effective for me with working with writers is find the level and the skill of that particular writer. Now, your less expensive writers are obviously going to be your less skilled and less capable writers. Your more skilled and capable writers are going to be obviously more expensive. The challenge is a lot of times we try to go to the more expensive resource, the better writer, and we ask them to write something from scratch. That's like paying a doctor, a skilled surgeon, to put a Band-Aid on your finger. It's not something that is necessary to have that level of skill. So what I'll oftentimes do is I'll have somebody, a lower level writer, but still a skilled writer, write something for me, and then I'll take that and then I'll have a better writer do the final edits. And what that does is I get the bulk of the content written at a lower price, and then I get the better of the editing done by somebody that has more capability. A couple specific things that I do that you might find useful as well is when I'm working with somebody who is writing something for me that they're not necessarily skilled in what they're writing, I'll give them as much information as I possibly can as far as giving them an outline, giving them chapter titles, giving them subchapter titles. Now, I used to go and research and find links and then provide them with the links to the research that I found. But to be honest with you, I found that they just copied the content from the links and reworded it, and it really didn't flow and it really didn't come together. So I don't usually give them my research. I usually let them go do their own research or come up within their own words, the content that matches the headings and the titles and the subject titles and the chapter titles that I came up with. And what I've also found is if I'm trying to get a very high quality ebook written that, I want to publish on Kindle or that I want to sell as one of my training courses, usually the first version or two are not as good as the final versions are going to be. So what I'll do is I'll set my own expectation that the first book I get back is probably not going to be as good as I'd like it to be. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually have one person write the first book or the first draft, and then I'll take that draft and I'll make some notes of some things that I'd like to see covered better better. I might even go in and edit out big chunks of fluffy words and things that don't really help the overall content of the book. And then I'll actually give it to a second writer and have them start from where the first writer left off and fill in the blanks and go and do more research to cover some of the areas that the first writer didn't. The issue that I've had is sometimes, a writer writes something and then you ask them to expand upon it, or you ask them to add some content that they may have left out, and they have a hard time envisioning that book being something other than what they wrote the first time. So actually having somebody else do a second revision is a good way to improve that content. Another skill that is good for outsourcing to a freelancer is transcriptions, or having things transcribed. Now, I do a lot of audios. I make podcasts, but I also do other audios. And that's usually my preferred method for creating content. I'll create an audio and then I'll have somebody transcribe it into text. And then I'll take that text and use it in multiple ways. Sometimes I use that text as articles. Sometimes I use that text as part of my presentation. Sometimes I use that text as my show notes for my podcast. Sometimes I'll use that text as something that I'll go back through and edit myself and make it into a chapter in a future ebook. Sometimes when I outsource to have somebody write me an ebook or write me an article, if I get it back and I like some of the things that they said in the article or in the ebook, but I don't generally like the whole ebook or the whole article, oftentimes I'll take that and just use that as notes and a guideline, and then I'll do a recording. And then I'll take that recording and have it transcribed, and then I'll use that as the article or the ebook. And that's a good way for me to help improve something that somebody else wrote for me without me having to sit there and edit every single word. If I take the article or the ebook that they wrote and I just use it as my guideline and I do a recording, I basically read their title, read their paragraph, and then I reword it and say it differently, say it in my own tone, say it my own way, add my additional comments and perspective to it. It usually really improves the content. Another area that a lot of people outsource is SEO, search engine optimization. Now, I'm going to be honest and say that I'm not a big fan of SEO, and largely because the rules constantly keep changing. Google and the other search engines change their algorithms all the time, and the rules about how to do search engine optimization are constantly changing and constantly in flux. So you never really know, are you doing the best things to get your website ranked within the search engines? But it is an area that you can outsource and you can get an expert. Now, I've hired a number of people to do SEO for me, and I will warn you that there are a lot of scam artists out there. There are a lot of people who will take your money and will not do anything. So you need to educate yourself at least a little bit on what SEO will do for you. What are the metrics that you need to be looking at, and how do you determine if they're actually helping you? One of the biggest things is just using something simple like Google's analytics and be able to look at how many people came to your website, how long did they stay on your website, and what is the bounce rate. That means how many people landed on your website and within the first few seconds immediately went someplace else. That's one of the big scams, is these companies have the ability to drive people to your website by tricking them into clicking a link that takes them to your website. And then when they land on the website, it's not something that they were interested in the first place, so they immediately click off and go away. And some of these search engine guys say, oh, look, I drove all this traffic to you. Well, yeah, but it was worthless traffic. It did nothing. You got 5,000 people to land on my webpage and immediately leave. That didn't benefit me in any way other than making my numbers go up, which I'm not impressed by if they didn't actually buy anything from me. So just be careful with the search engine optimization. But it is something that is outsourced, and I have found some folks that do help and are able to do different things to help, especially when you just want somebody to explain a particular area to you, how to improve one thing or another. But don't think that for the SEO that you're necessarily going to be able to just take anybody off the street and hire them to be your SEO expert, and that they're going to be able to do all these things. Because the rules are changing, because people have to stay on top of everything, even the people who were an expert 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, if they didn't continue to improve and didn't continue to change with the algorithms and continue to find new ways to be able to help your website get promoted, to help your service get promoted, they're going to be using older techniques that don't work. And again, a lot of them are using scammy techniques, so be on the lookout for that as well. Very similar to search engine optimization is social media marketing, SMM. You'll see that advertised a lot. And again, there are some great social media experts out there, and there are a ton of scam artists out there. If you want to get likes to your Facebook page, you can go out there and buy likes on Fiverr.com or on any of the other freelancing websites, and they'll drive likes to your Facebook page. But then Facebook is going to immediately remove those likes because they're not engaged with you, they're not engaged with your content, and they know that it was just a marketing ploy to get those people to like your page. So you'll ultimately end up paying somebody a bunch of money to not necessarily do anything. It doesn't matter if they got you 500 or or 1,000 likes if Facebook immediately takes them back away, or if they don't take them away, but those people never engage with you, they never buy your products, and they never provide any value for the money you spent in obtaining them. Now, what you can do is outsource the ability to have somebody create graphics for you, write articles for you, do research on things that you can post that are interesting so that you can engage with your followers. I have several different people. My virtual assistant works on my Facebook page and my social media pages, Twitter and LinkedIn and so forth. And they do a great job of managing that for me, doing some reach out, responding to folks. So you can absolutely outsource that to a freelancer or to several different freelancers. But again, just like SEO work, be careful on this social media stuff, because there's a lot of scams out there. And I've purchased my fair share of scams, and I've learned a few different ways of being able to tell if, in fact, they're just sending me garbage traffic or if they really know what they're doing. Let's pause there and finish up tomorrow with this third and final episode in this Building Your Business by Outsourcing series.
If you have a question for Anthony, then head over to www.anthonyflatt.com and leave him a voicemail message for a chance to have your question featured on the show. Thanks for listening to the Business at the Speed of